Yofi, shalom ubracha, chazde Hashem, chazde Hashem. Let's stop for a minute. Again, change and transition, chazde Hashem, change. That we move from space to space and transitioning, that our inner world has to catch up. Zadavar מאוד חשוב, something so important that we can just catch up with ourselves. As you just said, there has to be enough room in the nefesh. And when we swipe away, so to speak, all the programs we're not using, then what happens is we have more bandwidth. And Tachlis, as Am Yisrael, we have a lot of bandwidth. As individuals, we have a lot of bandwidth. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of bandwidth. And hopefully, in these times, bandwidth. Yesh lanu makom. Kacha yesh lanu makom. B'toch ben adam, yesh harbe makom. Aval keshe yesh harbe rash. The makom becomes kacha. Korum is a meichin dekatnos. But when we wake up and there's a lot of room, chazde Hashem. So our wanting is to create room, that we have the capacity to love deeper, we have the capacity to respect, we have the capacity to really be in touch with a truer essence and with the essence. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So take a moment. Just place your attention on your breath. And as you place your attention on your breath, just retether to the guf, naran, neshama, ruach, and nefesh, to retether to the guf. I'm here, das in my nefesh, in my guf. And just look around, das tachton chitzoni, just look around the space that I'm in. And das tachton pnimi, you can come inside, and as we spoke about last week, we can ask the question, ma ani margish, what am I feeling in my body right now? Just ask yourself and notice, non-judgmental observation. What am I feeling in my body right now? Then you can perform a body scan, and whatever the words mean to you, just do what the words are asking you to do in however you want to do it. What am I feeling in my body right now? Just notice. And let's shift to the next question. What am I feeling? What feelings am I feeling? What emotions am I feeling right now? Non-judgmental observation. Good, bad, relaxed, agitated, whatever it may be. Just allow it to be. There's no good, there's no bad. There's no wrong, there's no right. As Rabbi Nachman says in Kafhei, Rachamim Ambasar Aguf. Just to notice what's going on in your emotions. And welcome, allow it to be. Allow it to be. We are typically, for a lot of people, so harsh on ourselves. Give ourselves a little bit of a break. We're giving ourselves a little bit of a break in order to be more of a merkava to Magala Hashem's light. Rabbis machshavos belevish, when there's so much noise in our mind, it hinders our capacity to channel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. And as we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs us in the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Chai Sarah, Kaf Daled, Zayin, look at Rashi there. And one more shift. What am I thinking? Just ask yourself what I'm thinking and non-judgmentally observe. And whatever comes in, we mentioned last week that our thoughts share themselves, specifically called hirhurim. They share themselves as imagery and sound, voices that we hear within our mind, and images, pictures. We see pictures, hirhurim. And it's interesting to note that we can be speaking to each other So it could be two people, but there's a third element involved as well, and they're the voices that are coming up from the nefesh that's included in the conversation. Three, there's you and myself, but within myself I can hear my own voices interfering or adding as we speak.
Two people and two different.
Correct, but I'm only aware of what I'm aware of, typically. So this nakuda of recognizing that I, and we haven't spoken about who the I is, but the I, ani, whatever that is, I'm always relating to my nefesh, and my nefesh, within my nefesh, we are sharing here, that within the nefesh you have hirhurim, regesh, rikshe gufani, the way we translate that, if we want in a different language, it's hod, netzach, and yisod. And the last leg of our avodah in the messianic process, in the geula process, is really that our nefesh can become the merkava. As Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapiro would say, that we want to metaken, I think it was him, that we want to metaken the nefesh so the nefesh will metaken us. We want to metaken the nefesh so the nefesh will metaken us. This is the difference for those just in using a language. You don't have to listen to this and you don't have to get this, it's okay, but just hear the words. So you have keser and you have das. When das is in the picture, keser is not in the picture. When keser is in the picture, das is not in the picture. What's the shift? The shift is that I don't need to think. That's the world of keser, but misad tikkun. So when I'm working on myself, we mentioned we have hachnan havdala. Hachnan havdala is das. I can pull out of my experience, and I can become more aware of my nefesh self. That's an akuda of das. But then hamtaka is when the das goes back into the nefesh, but misad tikkun. So that now becomes keser. So on whatever level we're experiencing some sort of keser, the quality of our tikkun amidos will then express itself in the hasaga that we receive in that moment, or how in flow, so to speak, we are. And what we want to understand is that mamish, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all the gifts in the world. We have all the knowledge in the world in this generation. We have all the riches in this world, in this generation. We have everything. Kapshutai, we have everything. It's not outside, it's inside. It's not outside, it's inside. And the more that we can retether to our own machinery, the more that we can retether to ourselves, and the more we can metaken. Again, metaken we use in the world of the classical translation. Tikkun means to fix, but tikkun as well is to beautify. Targum Onkelos means to beautify, but tikkun as well is a lotion of healing. The more that we can heal, refuah, if we take the letters, the root of the word refuah, it's the same root as Tiferes. Tiferes Yisrael is a healed nation, where we can relate to each other, where we can hold each other, but that has to start with the availability and the cultivation to hold myself. And the more that I can send to myself, the more that we could be balei das, which so many svarim express that the Ika Avodah in this generation is das. Why? Because das is, so to speak, the missing link. Das is the negotiator between the neshama and the nefesh. And when we create that alignment, again, when we become the mechanic of our own machinery, the natural consequence is what? I feel better in myself. And when I feel better in myself, I can relate to other people in a healthier way. I can relate to people in a healthier way. The energy output. You know, by some of the tzaddikim, they were very harsh. They used to call you stupid and dumb. You know, there's certain tzaddikim, you asked a question, that was a stupid question. And then 5 minutes later, I'd ask, and it was me. I'd ask another question, they said, no, you know your question before, that was smart compared to this question. That's the stupid question. Now, for a lot of people, it may really upset them. But the nakuda is the energy of love, the energy of ahava that was felt. You knew where it was coming from. And we're living in a generation where people aren't in touch with themselves. And because they're not in touch with themselves, it's very difficult to be in touch with others. And the more we become balei das, the more we can be congruent within ourselves. So a yes can mean yes, and a no can mean no. But for so many people, in an unhealthy way, yes sometimes means no, and no sometimes means yes. And the refuah, the healing, is this internal healing that the Sfarim has laid forth to us. And with the Messiah, it opens up a world where tangibly we could experience change. And Tachlis, that's what we want. And especially where we are in our generation, there's a real fight. There's a real fight. Is the nefesh going to own us or not in an unhealthy way? Is the das going to be enveloped in the nefesh in an unhealthy way? Or is the das going to be at first above the nefesh, having the ability to negotiate between neshama and ruach? What do I mean practically speaking? Very simple. Is the illusion, which is be'emes a real illusion? Again, we spoke about this. When a person has a thought, it's real. When a person has a feeling, it's real. No one here should ever take away and not validate the fact that you're having your own experience. You're having your own ishi experience. And it's important to validate. Before you even start, if you don't validate the nefesh will fight against anything and everything that disqualifies the experience of the nefesh. So you have to validate. You have to know how to validate. That's number one. However, number two is to recognize that the experience that we experience is not one-dimensional. That means that I could say at the same time, I know that my thought is 100% real. I know my thought is 100% real. Remember, Heilige Chevra, beautiful Chevra, that we are freeze-framing a moving process. All of this is happening, it's moving, Ratzav V'Shav, there's an ebb and flow. We're freeze-framing so we can try and build a relationship, little by little, deepening our understanding. So what happens? It's true to say that your thought that you are having is true. It's emet and sheker at the same time. So I can validate your thought. However, I want all of us, me, you, all of us, to go higher than our negative thinking. If we're having positive thinking, labriyut, keep it, fine. So the nakuda is hachnan havdala is I validate your poison thinking. I validate your tipshut. I validate it. But from a place of das, you can hold your own sheker. And you could say at the same time, be'emes, this thought is emes. And I know at the end of the day, it's only coming to protect me from something. That my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, this is based on a Ramchal, my nefesh, all my nefesh wants to do is protect me. So for example, the discrepancy between the neshama and the nefesh that das has to negotiate is, in the world of nefesh, I want to eat. But I want to eat now. If I don't eat now, I'm going to die. This is actually a very, very big Musa Heskel. When a child is crying for food, when a baby is crying for food, my grandfather would say that we as an adult have this what's called self-restraint. I had breakfast. A child lives purely in the moment. So when a baby's crying for food, or when you take a toy away from a baby, it's as if you've ripped a part of them away from them. It's as if when a child is crying, they're never going to eat again. They need to eat now. That's the nefesh. We want to be able to educate and transmit that, look at that, you've eaten today. So the discomfort you're feeling now is not so bad. But that takes time. That takes a lot not taken for granted. We take a lot for granted. That's again the nefesh. The nefesh is we take a lot for granted. The more we're in a state of das, the more that we are present, I can read the situation as if it's the first time I'm ever experiencing the situation. My nefesh is going to want to tell me this, that, and the other. And what I can do is, I could be aware of my own story. I could be aware of my own narrative. So this is going on right now. This is going on right now. This is going on right now. Tachlis is that I ate 3 hours ago, and even though my body's making these noises that I'm hungry, I've eaten. I can go for the next 20-something hours without eating. I'm okay. But that takes maturity. A child doesn't have that. Now, we have to understand that, as we said, we mentioned this in another place by the Ropshitzer. The Ropshitzer, when he went to Paro, he says, the Nahare Neni, the child is not with me. How can I go back to my father with the child not with me? So the Ropshitzer understands that within us we have all of these children. We have to bring them as well. We have to bring them to our Kodesh Baruch Hu as well. That childlike voice that may be malicious, hurtful, angry, lustful, has and needs a space. There's a tikkun that's going on. And there's a nakud of hashkacha pratis. So we want to be able to hold it. And we want to be able to validate. But at the same time, I recognize this is emes, emes, emes. And at the same time, we can be bigger than this. And that's the union of machlekes, met chelek, death to the part. Death to the part, become bigger than the part. And this is actually how we're told, the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer tells us, I believe it's in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, with Aaron HaKohen, that Aaron HaKohen, when he would sit with a couple to make shalom, he would go bigger than the prat of the argument. So if there's a couple and they're arguing about chairs, I want this chair and you want this chair, and they can go backwards and forwards, they're in cutness. So you both want chairs. Yeah, we both want chairs. Why do you both want chairs? To make our house nice. So you both want to make your house nice. Why do you both want to make your house nice? And you go bigger and bigger and bigger. This is an akudah of shalom. Shalom is shleimus. Shalom is integrating. Shalom is the integrative process to come to emes. What is shalom? Shalom is the process. Emes is the end product. If you start with the end product, you'll destroy. But if you go through a process of shalom, emes becomes beautiful. So you've got the truth, but if a person works on sharing that truth without the process of relationship and integrating all the parts, that nakuda of shalom becomes the most destructive force. And Chazal in Gemara Shabbos tells us that shalom trumps emes. Nachon? Why is shalom, so to speak, more important than emes? Why is shalom, so to speak, from what Chazal is teaching us, more important than emes? Because people could be truthful and kill with their truth. But the moment you spend even a moment on shalom, building a relationship, then when you go and speak about emes, you can hold that emes in the context of shalom. Make sense? So the baal das understands this. The baal das has the ability to build that connection, and it takes time. It takes time, it really does. It takes time, it takes effort. But that's not to do with ourselves? No, that's fully to do with ourselves. Fully to do with ourselves. And only when we become a baal das and we can have a cleaner hasaga, because hasaga is always coming down, but hasaga is always being mitlabesh in our hirhurim regesh rikshay gufani, which are the levushim. So our truths are always being processed through our language and through the language and the perception to what's available to me in that moment. So that's what tikkun hamidos is. When I'm being metaken my midos, when I'm learning musa, and when I'm working on myself, and when I'm having deeper conversations, what is in fact happening is my nefesh is becoming higher. So nefesh is coming into ruach. And that's the language that's used, for example, in Sifrei Chabad, for example, you've got Kuntra Sa'avaida. Chabad uses this language of bringing the nefesh up to ruach. You've got Kuntra Sa'avaida, Kuntra Sa'tfila. So these Kuntrasim in Chabad speak to that. So when we are upgrading the quality of the nefesh, the levush, the clothing of that hasaga, of that insight is going to be that much more clearer. That much more clearer. And everyone can do this on their level. Everyone can do this. But again, we mentioned at the beginning, we've been educated out of Tzelem Elokim. And now we have to re-educate ourselves back into Tzelem Elokim. So let's stop for a minute, or let's do just to tie in to what we said before. This is from a couple of weeks ago. So how I can start to observe. So the way I can start to observe my own narrative is by asking the three questions. Mani margish, mani choshev, mani margish b'gufani. Fine. So we spoke about that, to understand its levush. And then the nakude is, last week we spoke about how I could either ignore or explore my nefesh. So if there's a thought, feeling, or physical sensation, hod, netzach, and yisod, either I could explore that thought, feeling, and physical sensation, or I can ignore it. So sometimes I will want to explore a negative thought. Where's it coming from, bichlal? Is it kashur to something? But sometimes I don't need to explore. Sometimes I can say, I know you're there, I'm saying hello to you, I'm validating your position, and I'm going to keep on doing this. And if you look in the world of Chabad, by the Baal Tanya, so by the Sfarim HaKadoshim, the Baal Tanya, forget eliminating, you're too Israeli. You have to have, the Americans, they're more, what do they do? Diplomatic. You have to be more diplomatic before elimination. Das is diplomatic before elimination. Rega. This is part of the problem, that we read a lot of these books and we want to mamash go for the kill. But you can't go for the kill if you don't have a relationship. Zayn yan shel shalom. And what happens is, if you put consciousness, das, this is Rabbi Yisrael Salant, next to nefesh, who will win? Nefesh will always win. Nefesh is more noisy and louder. Das is dak. So you have to be smart. You have to be a negotiator. If you look in Nefesh HaChaim, one of the birurim on Nefesh HaChaim, in the 3rd paragraph, shares that das is a negotiator. Das has and should develop the availability to negotiate between the neshama and the nefesh. So right now we're in das tachtoin pnimin chitzoni. Nachon? I think that's become quite clear. Das tachtoin chitzoni, spatial awareness. Das tachtoin pnimi is what's going on inside. What am I relating to inside? At first, there's no neshama. At first, it's das with your nefesh. What's within nefesh? 3 modes of experience within me. I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations that are within my body. Whether the body is part of das or not, or whether the body is part of nefesh or not, is a machlaikas. Because it's different shitot. Either it is or it isn't. Aval nafkamina, it doesn't make a difference in experience. I know I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. Das tachtain. But then, when you can experience das, when you could start to experience das, we could move from das tachtoin to das. Das is shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, where I can learn to let go. I can learn to let go, and I can learn to suspend judgment. It's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's all the same. It's not detachment mitzad negativity. It's just, okay, that's going on. It's going on. But then eventually, as we even more mature, we have daat elyon. So one chelik of daat elyon is creating communication between the neshama and the nefesh. Creating communication between the neshama and the nefesh. Daat elyon, we mentioned this, you have behema, nefesh bahami is behema, where the hisaris and the dachav, dibarnu al zeh, with our meeting with Rav Alfasi and Rav Segal, im eta zocher, the stimulus and response are touching. I see something, hisaris dachav, I'm pushed into it. There's no break. Adam is where I can make a space, and then B'nai Torah, what do we drop into that space? So in the world of Adam, I could drop in mindfulness. In the world of Adam, I could drop in sociological norms. In the world of B'nai Torah, I want to drop in the sugiyas that I've learnt about in Machshava, Gemara, Halacha, the Halacha of the Davar, Psukim of the Davar. So when I'm about to wash my hands, I can have Sudechem Kodesh Baruch Hu Es Hashem. So that's an Inyan of B'nai Torah. I'm being makasha myself. So you've got the stage 1 of das elyon is neshama and nefesh communicating through das. Stage 2 is dropping in Torah. Stage 3 is what we call yichudim. So the way in our derech of avodah with yichudim, we start just by the oisiyos. So practicing just saying aleph, beis, gimel, and imagining the aleph dropping in through the space into the nefesh. And there's different ways of doing it, different variations. Then you can imagine the mitzvah that you're going to do. So we have there's a set of shirim somewhere that one day will go up, where it takes all of the mitzvahs that we do, and it takes the root of the word, and we give a little perush on the root of the word, and then an avodah with the root. So for example, if it's tefillah, so the root of the word tefillah is related to judging yourself. So for example, it's recognizing, and this is to do with, it's a few different dargas. This whole mahalach is from a tzaddik who was in London, Reb Chaim, who received this tradition from his grandfather and Nabukadseras, where you would take the word tefillah, understand the etymology of the word tefillah, and think about that for a moment, but then you would mechaven on the word tefillah. I'm about to daven. Why? Because the letters are packages of energy. The letters are packages of energy. So you imagine the Or Elyon and this is from the Or L'Shamayim, but it's found again from the Abu Katsera and his family who are from Baghdad. You bring down the Or Elyon through the letter, and then you bring it through your neshama into your nefesh. It's an avodah, it's a very abstract, high idea, but what that does, that floods you with the light of that ois, with the light of that letter. So that's das elyon, and then you have other forms of yichudim. Yud, Hey, and the Vav, Hey. You have other yichudim, other forms of yichudim. And then other yichudim are more maybe common to us, that we've heard about. And plus we do it on the breath. We do it on the breath as well. What happened? No, leave it, it's on. Thank you so much. So then the other yichudim, we use the breath as well. You can use yichudim where you're not using the breath, so you're just using your koyach hadimyon and machshava. But there's another way of being miyachid yichudim, where, for example, Yud, Hey, Vav, you breathe in, Hey. So you're breathing in the Yud, and then as you breathe out, it's being mashpia on your guf. So it's different forms of yichudim. It could be Yud, Hey, Vav. There's many ways to play, but the point is you're making a kesher between neshama, ruach, and nefesh. Right now we're just in das tachton. We're just in das tachton, relating to the lower machinery. And again, when we start to recognize that, when we have a Masorah, by the way, we have a Masorah, one Masorah we have, all we have to do in order to really open everything up is das tachton. That's it. All we have to do is das tachton. All nationally. We don't have to do das elyon, nothing. The fact that we just work on getting to know ourselves, das tachton, is enough to make a shift. Why? Because the fact that you know you're relating to your narrative globally, that's enough. After that, then if you want das and letting go, like Shavisi Hashem and Yichudim, זה דבר מאוד יפה. You know, I mentioned this before. There was once we had, do you remember they came to the house, the J for J's, the Yoshki Pendrix, they come to the house and they try to make you not three. In London you have in America as well, the J for J, they come to the house. So they came to a house. Yeah, you know what they are? Ken? Yeah? You have them in America? Canada? So they come to the house and they knock on the door. We're speaking. So I said to them, I come in, have a kos tea. I was makabel this from my father. Come in, have a kos tea, sit. So let me hear what you have to say. So I said, why do you care so much? Like, why do you care so much? So they said, because if you don't believe in him, you're condemned to hell forever. Oh, so I understand. So you're loving, this loving person, so loving, and you're so loving that if you don't believe in him, you're condemned to hell forever. I hear why you're knocking at my door. And I went silent. So they said to me, well, what do you have to say? I said, my God's better than your God. What? My God is better. Even if I'm a Rasha, even if I'm an Apikoros, even if I don't believe in my God, he looks after me, so my one's better than yours. Aval, זה דבר מאוד עמוק. It's a very, very, very deep nukuda. I remember the Biala Rebbe used to say, Hashem's big. Hashem is big. And the only reason a person hasn't connected to divine intelligence, to Ein Sof, is because something's in the way. Something's in the way. So mitzad, the person, if they're born into a family that's this way or that way, of course it's going to mashpia on the person. So Biala Rebbe would always say, ignore the noise. Ignore the noise. V'zeh kol ha'inyan po. Ignore all the noise. All the noise is what? All the noise is I believe in him, I don't believe in him. Ze kol shtuyot. Ze kol shtuyot. You have to believe. You have to make your kesher. And when you make your kesher, what's the derech of Torah? Neimut. There's times in Torah where we have to go to the neck. There's times in Torah, correct, we have to go for the neck. We have to stand up strong, pride, and mamish destroy. There are times in Torah that we are commanded to do so. And we have a Tanakh, and the Tanakh tells us how we have to act. So yes, there's a side of the hero, and the hero holds a sword, guns, grenades, and we go for the kill. We go for the kill. There's nothing to talk about. Aval, the other side of Yiddishkeit is the Abrahamic vision. And how do we want the Abrahamic vision to occur? Opposite to the Eruv Rav. So we want to care, share, support, and encourage with good, firm boundaries. That's the Abrahamic vision. The tent is open, all sides, and we care, share, support, and encourage with good, firm boundaries. What does that mean? My ruchniut is my ruchniut, but I have to care for your gashmiut. I have to make sure, tachlis, you're safe, you feel good, you have somebody to speak to. Why? Because the nefesh picks everything up. And the nakuda of the nefesh is going to, however it's been trained, perception, however it's going to be trained, is going to tell you this maisa and that maisa and this maisa and that maisa and the other maisa. And we, Tishma Tov, I saw with my own eyes, people would come to Rabbi Singer and they would say, I'm an atheist. Oh, okay. Well, Rabbi, what do you have to say about that? Nothing. Aren't you going to prove to me there's a God? No. But isn't your job to prove to me there's a God? No. But what's your job? Talze mashul ishtot, kostei, talze uga. Ma? Aval, I saw this. If somebody was malicious, Rabbi Singer would go for the kill. There's a whole story with Woody Allen. I think it was Woody Allen. Woody Allen was a Yid. Yeah. He was a comedian. Yeah. So one time Woody Allen said something to Rabbi Singer, and Rabbi Singer chased him out the shul. You know, our Torah is not archaic. I can't remember the full story. But I saw with my own eyes, the Biala Rebbe was the same. I took people who were atheists, and I thought, excellent, the Rebbe will convert them. And there's one particular Yid today, hu lo dati, aval yesh lo emuna b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was an atheist, he didn't believe in Hashem, but he has emuna in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I took him to the Rebbe, he was an atheist. No, now. So he was an atheist. And in London, I took him to the Biala Rebbe. And I wanted the Biala Rebbe to convert him, to make him into a Chassidish Yid, or a Chassid of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe didn't do anything of the sort. For about 12-13 minutes, the Rebbe asked him what your job is, and how's your family, and do you have enough parnasa? Oh, maybe I can help you with this person and this person with what you do. Amarti, ma? Aval Rebbe, where's the ruchnius? He says, my job is ruchnius, my job is to make sure people are okay. What's the nakuda? The nakuda pnimi is that when you become more aligned, when you in yourself become healthier, and you become kinder, and you become happier, more joyful, there's an energy shift. There's an energy shift. We really don't have to work so hard. There's an energy shift. Now, when a person is so loving, there was a tzaddik called Saba Schwartz, Rabbi Yosef Schwartz, and I remember he said to me that when he went to the Sandlar, all he wanted to learn was Das Tachton. That was it. Because the moment he can break through all the klipot of the noise, all the stories, and just love the person for loving the person, everything changes. When you can have that respect and dignity and health, everything changes. Everything changes. And ultimately, that's where we are right now. That's why we're recording these videos. How many years everyone's been driving me mad to record these videos, more like, and they're putting on YouTube, and I didn't do it. Why are we doing it? Because we're at a point in time where there's a big shift that's going on, and the tzaddikim said, record. The tzaddikim said, go forward and record. Why? Because people have, even though we are hurting so much, there's an availability for something new that has not been around since the times of the Beis Hamikdash. And believe it or not, it doesn't involve big yichudim, nothing like that. It involves das tachton, k'pshutai. It doesn't involve big yichudim. The Baal Shem Tov said, let the Baal Shem Tov say what the Baal Shem Tov said, with kavod rabbah, 100%, the emet. However, you have to be able to get there. And you can't jump there to emes without the shalom. And the only way you can hold the shalom is through das tachton pnimi and chitzoni. That's stage one. V'ze davar ma'od chashuv. And we will, all those people that hang on, we will get to what the Baal Shem Tov was speaking about globally. However, it takes time. And tachlis, in London, there was I was zeicher to learn with a cousin of, because of when we speak, I'm remembering this, with Lubavitch Rebbe, second cousin of the Lubavitch Rebbe. His name was Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And he was a great-grandson, one of the last great-grandchildren of the Koppester Rebbe, if not the last. And he said, the Nakuda of Chabad is, even though they don't know this, I know from the Rebbe, they work with shalom first. You give food, you bring people in conjunction with teaching Tanya and Chassidus. So you've got both happening together. And remember, in education, we've spoken about this, in education, the Nakuda of education, which is ever so important to realize, is first, we have a guf, we have to care for the body. We have to make sure a person feels safe. And then emotionally safe. And emotionally to be seen, to be heard, to be soothed. Very important. And then to have stimulating information. When we have those three, you don't have to work so hard to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when a person's in the klipas, when a person's in Meichin de Katnus, when a person's in a Katnus, when a person's in a smallness, to speak about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the worst is when you say things like this, oh, you're going through your pain, oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows it's the best for you. Oy vavoy. Oy vavoy. I've done it. It's not good to do. You're nasty, Hashem. Hashem's a piece of work. He could go to hell. But of course, that's what someone's going to say when they're in their klipa. Nachon or no? What does a person need first? We need each other. But how do we need each other? From a place of health. The Sasva Rebbe in London, he once said as following: how do you know? How do you know? Tishma, it's like Pelaplaim. It's like, I heard this and I started to cry. Like, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so humble, as it says in Tanya. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so big. He's so big. Rabbi Nachman shares this as well. Ein Sof, Chazde Hashem, the Beira Olam. This is the HaKadosh Baruch Hu we have. Moshe Rabbeinu, who had a face-to-face relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nachon? Moshe Rabbeinu had a face-to-face relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yet, what do we know from Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu felt a little bit nervous for him to go himself to Paro. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Go with your brother. You can have a panim relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Go with Aaron. Go with your friend. Go with your friend. Go with your brother. I'm not enough. In that moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't enough. Go with your friend Aaron. And Sasva Rebbe shows that he shared that community, we need one another. However, we need one another from a place of health. And we're all Schneiders, as we said. From das Tachton Chitzoni and Pnimi, when I'm aware of where I am, the space I'm in, when I'm aware of the people I am with, when I'm aware of what's going on, and we can have that relationship in a healthy way, I feel secure, I can share. So my inside nefesh world and what's going on in reality, there could be more of an emet, because there's a shalom. So for example, if a person's not feeling so well, but he has a place to turn up, and you can turn to the person next to him and look at him in the eyes and says, I'm not doing so well right now. So what happens? The inside world and the outside world start to have a kesher. And somebody on the outside will turn to you and say to you, how can I help you? How can I help you? And I could tell you. We have people in the Beis HaMedrash, one particular person, he suffers from OCD. And there was one point in time, he didn't speak to me for 4 months. And he came in one day, and I said, Shalom Aleichem, how you doing? I reached out to him, he didn't want to speak to me. Why? Because I did something to him, and he thought a certain thought, and he held on to that thought for 4 months. And Tachlis is, he came and said to me what the Maisa was, and I said to him, Mechila and Slicha, I'm so sorry that you understood it like that, and I'm mamash, really, really, really sorry. And he looked at me, and he went from, and the reason why he did that is because his wife said, stop being such a fool and go speak to the man. And he felt better afterwards. He felt better. And more than that, I said to him, if you can, anytime your nefesh, anytime you relate to a thought in that way, come and tell me straight away. And now we make fun in a healthy way. We make fun. He makes fun of me. I make fun of him. Why? Tell you why. Because that brings down the wall. And Chazde Hashem, since then, the relationship has been a lot better. Could be maybe there's another person in the Beis HaMedrash I know that may experience the same thing. That there's a feeling of safety, that my inside nefesh world can be heard outside of my own guf. But that can only happen when you yourself don't get offended, when you yourself don't get hurt, when your nefesh doesn't get triggered. And if it does get triggered but you're in a state of das, you'll work with it. You'll work with it. If you have to push back a little bit, you'll work with it. But when you have das tachtoin, pnimi, and you can hear your own narrative and you can catch your own narrative. I'm relating to a thought that's telling me this. I'm thought, emes, hirhur, you're real. However, I know that's a child thought and that we're going to grow together. We're going to grow. And when we have that and we can relate to each other, that's one of the big nakudas of what's missing in our dor. And that's one of the big nakudas of how we start to journey towards emes. It's davar מאוד מאוד חשוב. Something very, very, very important. So I'm going to stop before we read through this short paragraph. Let me take questions. We've said a lot. The idea that we've said so far is a very singular idea from many ways. Das tachtoin chitzoni and das tachtoin pnimi, and how having the availability to become more aware, kapshutai, of my internal story, having the availability to be honest within myself through shalom, and then having the ability to be around people that can hold that space as well. אני חושב זה דבר מאוד חשוב. I think it's something very, very important. But again, like I've said from the beginning, I'm not here to preach, this is that. I'm here to share and fight back or agree or let me hear from you. Are there any questions? Are there any insights? So, yes, sir.
To mashkian, people that give over Torah or rabbanim of shuls, so they give, their Friday night speech or Shabbos day, they give over some Torah, they give over their teaching people. So is the Rav saying that if the place is not safe, if the shul, let's say, is not a safe place, or it's not physically or emotionally, then they can just preach all they want and it's basically pointless?
I wouldn't say, so you're asking a question, I'm going to repeat it just so the people listening online can hear. בוא בפנים, הנה יש אתה רוצה בעזרת נשים. So what I would say is what I would say is as following, that the space and the people in the space make a difference to the Torah being listened to. The Torah being listened to. So the more conscious, and this is how once upon a time it used to be. אתה רוצה בעזרת נשים? אין בעיה. בסדר, יש מקום שמה, בסדר. So this nakuda is a very, very important nakuda that, yes, once upon a time, if you're dealing with, for example, certain Bate Midrashim, everybody was on the same page. If you're speaking about the world of Musa, Navaduk, Slobodka, they were on the same page. If you're speaking about the courts in Europe, the Hasidic courts, everybody, there wasn't far to go. You were stuck in your shtetl. So you were forced to work with each other. And when whoever gave over Torah heard that Torah, it was in a context where people were together, people worked together. It's only in the last 100 years we've got this massive shift that has occurred, where now, I could start my day off in America or England, and I can end up in Eretz Yisrael, and I could daven in a minyan where I've never ever seen the person I'm standing next to before, and I'll never maybe see them again. That's all new. On a certain respect, that's far new in the amount, the quality and quantity of that happening. You'd have people traveling from place to place doing business, but ultimately the space that they were in, people typically lived and belonged to a community with a certain derech of avodah, however overt or covert. And yes, if a person is disconnected, it really is a difficulty in absorbing that information. It is, it's not easy, but if it's a good place to be, just keep on turning up.
So in school education, if a child is being bullied, it's basically
So a child being bullied, is it pointless for them to go? I think it brings up other questions that are not fitting for now. On a certain respect, maybe yes, but on another respect, maybe no. Maybe if it could be held in a healthy way, we're always free if Khalil Vachas it continues to move school. However, what we don't want to do is disempower a child who's being bullied. We want to empower them, but that's a different conversation. But again, the level of maturity comes from within us. And that's Tachton Pnimi and Chitzoni. And the mashpia holding the parent, holding the friend, holding the other from the outside of self.
So can I just clarify? So that our job, or one of the things, our job is to develop or get in touch with das Tachton Pnimi, and through that healing process, we heal, and then our job with other people is to just be there for provide physical and emotional safety for those we have a relationship with.
And more than that, if it's called for.
If it's
Called for. So if somebody starts to have a conversation with you about Hashem, about everything that's going on, you have normal conversations. But the fact is, you're two human beings who are aligned, two human beings who you're strong in yourself. That adds up, hopefully, to a long-term, deep, beautiful relationship. Where that space exists, that's something incredibly special. That's something very, very special when you can hold that. Does that speak to what you were asking a little bit? Obviously, there's more to speak about. But
what came up when you said that was...
That's a nefesh. That's a hirhurim.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what came up was the story of the Baal Rebbe with the Baal Rebbe. Someone came and asked the atheist.
Yes, Baal Rebbe.
He just sat there saying, "Oh, we want some tea and how's it work?"
I mean, he spoke to the person. He spoke to the person.
About God didn't exist.
Correct. Because it really didn't exist in the other person. Why that person believes what that person believes, that takes relationship to figure out where they came from, who they are, what's going on. And typically what I find is that a lot of language gets in the way. So when I use the term God, what happens inside of you? What again, the way the nefesh works is that we select and associate information. So what story is connected to that word God for you? Is it a good story? Is it a not good story? When I mention this person's name, what story, association, and the connectiveness of what happened before, what happened afterwards, and then there's layers. So for example, a person had a very good experience, but then as they were having that good experience, they broke their foot. So the selection and association of now what's going on in the nefesh will be connected. And do you remember we said this term, whatever is louder grabs your attention. You remember that? Whatever is louder grabs your attention. And whatever is more emotionalized is going to be very sticky. So in Avodas Hashem, this was a shift for sure in the world of Chassidus, to emotionalize what you're doing. In the world of Musa, Hislavos, emotionalize a chosen thought. Emotionalizing a chosen thought. That's how the nefesh works. Make loud HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a healthy way. Whatever you want, make it louder. Whatever you want, emotionalize it even more. And that's the basis of tikkun hamidos. That you learn about a midah and you emotionalize and make loud that particular midah, make exciting that particular midah. So when you hear the word Ahava, you're on fire. When you hear the word HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whoa, I'm on fire. When you hear the word anava, I'm on fire. I'm alive with it. That's tikkun hamidos, avodas Hashem. There's the knowledge, the emotionalization, and the physical practice.
It seems that a lot of people with the emotionalization would, I'm wondering if what the Rav says is not a personality issue. I think, wouldn't a lot of people just become just distressed, or maybe there's a better word, because of the emotionalization?
Correct. So we want to choose deliberately the emotion. People naturally are always going to be stimulated. So you're 100% right. Emotions are a powerful tool. Am I going to use my emotion to upgrade my life or not? Do I know that tool is available for me?
Isn't it better the seichel a better tool to use?
So the seichel is only will take you so far. So for example, there's two sorts of his lavus or his boinanus. You've got the world of Musa, which is going deep inside and really de-emotionalizing. But there's another side where it's we to emotionalize, emotional. All of these tools are within Adam, and to say the seichel is better than this, or it doesn't work like that. We're a whole human being. We have a seichel, use it. We have emotions, use it. We have many different parts of the human experience, and what you will find is some people relate more to this, and some people relate more to that. And from the Messiah that we received, work with the person where they are. Know the machinery, know how the machinery works, know all the mechanistic elements, and allow somebody to follow their own path in how they work. But the end goal is that they should be a better, healthier human being, connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hopefully Be'ezras Hashem being shomer Torah mitzvahs with ahava, with yira.
I have a question. What's been said until now, I have questions, and I just wonder if I should come after the shir.
Is there a few questions?
Yeah,
Wait till afterwards. Wait till afterwards, yes. Anybody has anything to add? Yes. Sorry.
I just want if you give me some clarity around the way that we're meant to interact with the nefesh.
The way that we're meant to interact with the nefesh, yes.
Is it that we're meant to appease it by giving it what it's asking for? Or are we meant to detach? In terms of moving yourself up, I'm confused about between the two things. I'm sure some of them maybe feel like, we need to address the nefesh and make sure it's in Zonah in order to move up, and some are like, we need to withhold and be mature, so to speak.
So let me see. So you're asking the question, how am I meant to relate to the nefesh? Do I appease the nefesh, or do I detach and am I strong on it? Am I harsh, so to speak, on it? This is a very good question. So I would say it's both. The Ikar Avodah at first is to build a relationship with the nefesh so you can influence the nefesh. Now what happens is the nefesh, imagine a dog. Imagine a dog. This is why it's called a nefesh bahami. Imagine a dog, imagine an animal. For most animals, one can train an animal. So take, for example, a dog. One can train a dog. You could train a dog to do the most unbelievable things. A dog untrained can be a wild animal. A dog trained could be the greatest aid, an asset. So it's exactly the same, so to speak, with the nefesh. The nefesh is trainable, it's programmable. So first, at times, what you need to do is influence it in a positive way, to build trust with the nefesh. And it sounds very, very odd if you've never heard this before, and there's a lot that I'm taking for granted here. There's a lot that I'm taking for granted, but you'll get this. I believe you'll get it like this. What happens, at first I need to build a relationship with my nefesh. That may happen by first the giving and appeasing. But then what happens, there's a shift that needs to take place, where then I could become the balabais, the balabasta over the nefesh. I could then say, okay, tachlis chevra, bang, this is what we're doing. So last week I think it was, not quoting sources, but quoting sources, the Kuzari 5.3. That we want to be the king, the prince, the queen, the princess of our own nefesh, and make sure that the nefesh has everything it needs and hold a position of healthy control. That when I need something, the nefesh will come and do my bidding like that. So that's stage one. So I'll tell you a Maisa, when I was first by the Pilsner Rav, in America, I don't know if you know this, but everything is bigger in America. In London, everything is like normal size. So when I came to America, everything is sweeter and more tastier and bigger. And I remember, do you remember with the orange juice, the story with the orange juice? So I went to Rabbi Singer and they had this orange juice. And I was learning a sefer called Smichas Chachamim with the Pilsner Rav with Rabbi Singer. And he said to me, if a hirhur comes up to have the orange juice, have the orange juice. And any hirhur, any thought that came up to have the orange juice, I had the orange juice. I was running to the bathroom the whole time. But the point is, let your nefesh know that you're on your nefesh's side.
Is it a one-time thing?
It could take time, but you have to know yourself. And the way you get to know yourself is that when you are honest with yourself, and for example, I'm now going to be gevuradik on my nefesh. Let's see what happens. And tachlis, what happens typically is when you've done the tikkun amidos properly, then you could be gevuradik, and how do you feel, bad or good? You feel amazing. And tachlis, your nefesh, bang, your nefesh, like the thoughts don't come back for a period of time. We had in Chabura, I remember, we had in Chabura for a period of a number of weeks, there was a particular yid that would eat crisps. They would eat crisps, and when he would eat the crisps, he was always self-conscious that as I was speaking, the crunch in his head, and everyone's hearing this crunch. They were pretty crispy crisps, and it was noisy. So we said for a couple of weeks, keep on eating the crisps, and he kept on having this hirhur, and he gave into his hirhur. But then after a couple of months, we spoke about this. We spoke about it in the check-in session at the beginning of Chabura. We spoke about it, and we all found it amusing, but we said to carry on. But then he came and he says, I want to do a test. Labriut. So we supported him. He says, hirhurim, you are not going to come up and disturb me about crisps in shir. And I've got this whole bowl of crisps that when we finish shir, you're going to have. It was an amazing thing. Moving from every few minutes, crisps, crisps, crisps. He didn't have one hirhur. But afterwards, he gave himself permission to eat the crisps. So there's a trust. You have to build a relationship. And as you build an influence in a healthy way, the nefesh will always want, I believe, to do your bidding.
So in light of that, if I'm in that moment of trying to be good with my nefesh, and I am noticing either non-cooperation or not, like the Rav just mentioned, like you feel good, not a good feeling afterwards, is that a signal to me that I need to go back to maintaining, like
it could be
relationship before I start to demand of it to go beyond?
So if in the moment you are checking in and you feel either not good or non-cooperation, is that a siman either way to go? So sarich iyun, you need to sit with somebody and you need to work it out. Yes, that's a siman. Something is not necessarily, and it could be sometimes do the discomfort for another couple of weeks and see what happens. Another few times. And it takes conversation with a friend, with a teacher. It takes conversation. That's what tikkun hamidos is. That's what the guidance of tikkun hamidos.
The first part is that you have to develop, meaning there's first feeding the nefesh.
Correct.
Because there's also this concept that what you feed grows.
Correct.
So you don't want to grow the nefesh.
So this is the Nakuda. Rabbi Nachman has a story of the Turkey prince. This is the Nakuda of the Turkey prince. At first, the daat has to come down to the nefesh. That's called Hachnan Havdalah. When the daat comes down to the nefesh, Hachnan Havdalah, from there you could bring everyone and everybody up together. And it takes time, and it's definitely more of a sikha.
It's supposed to feel like fighting yourself. It's supposed to feel like working with yourself.
Eventually. At first it will feel fighting with yourself, but eventually, hopefully, it becomes percentage-wise more working with yourself, less than fighting. But each person's different. Each person's coming from their own background. So you have to have that context. And the availability, as Rabbi Nachman says in Lukutei Maran Kaf, hey, to have compassion on the basar aguf. Okay. I'm looking at the time. So what we'll do, we'll Baruch Hashem, I believe what we did today, I did b'cheshbon, mechila, that we didn't go further in the booklet, but I believed today was very important just to reiterate and to deepen our understanding of where we are within this avodah. So we'll carry on next week. And what I'd like you to do a check-in. So turn to the person next to you and do a check-in. What did you hear today? What spoke to you? Again, we don't hear everything, and we're not meant to hear everything. There's Hashgacha Pratis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we heard what we needed to hear. So Be'ezras Hashem, do a check-in with your chaver. What did you hear? What do you walk away with? What resonated? Maybe what didn't resonate with you? And we'll go for a couple of minutes, 2 minutes and 2 minutes. So that depends on you. Again, there's a process that we're sharing here. So the question is, just for the wonderful viewers online, no, davar chadash, I have to say this now so they can hear it. So the nakuda of when do I start doing something with the internal dialogue? So depending on where you are in your process. Sometimes you'll want to say, okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes, let's sit and listen to all your kvetching, or listen to all your insight. It's all a bechina of what we call tiferes actually. Hasaga comes through tiferes. So I'm listening. And it could be I want to entertain, I want to explore. Or it could be, right now we're going to ignore you and I'm going to give you time at this point in time. However, if you make a declaration to your nefesh, it's important to carry it through. It is important to carry it through. But what we're saying, it's not written in stone. There's certain shifts. And as long as we know the mechanistic parts of these shifts, so the first shift is to build a relationship. The first nakuda of building a relationship is, so to speak, holding and giving what the nefesh wants. Then the second shift is learning to be a little bit gevuradik and seeing what happens. The third shift is, or I'm saying it in this way as it comes out, but it may not be in this way. It's the ability to ignore or explore a thought, feeling, or physical sensation. The fourth shift is having the ability to, so to speak, it sounds odd to some people. Either we could say from a more psychotherapeutic perspective, doing some sort of intervention, or it could be some sort of spiritual physio-psycho intervention, which could be shining the light of Hashem on that particular part. There's many things that we can do.
How does one know when to actually do something? If
So
you're at a stage to do
that
something
it's trial and error. Trial and error.
Notice them being triggered. Cool, great.
Yeah, it's trial and error. Correct. Trial and error. That nakuda of what you do, when and how, what we are wanting here is to gift ourselves, and it's always a reminder for me as I share, it's to gift ourselves this important knowledge, these wisdom teachings, and then the actualization of them within the context that we are freeze framing a moving process. Don't make black and white this process. We're freeze framing a moving process. We're learning about the parts and we're recognizing, me within this moment, this is now what I'm going to choose to work on. Let's see what happens. Experiment and experience. And this is an akudah of Rabbi Nachman, Akutei Maran. What is Rabbi Nachman? It's a Ruach HaKodesh diary. Rabbi Nachman is sharing this in lifetime. This is the experience that Rabbi Nachman had, where he is taking the parts of a system that can be communicated and then showing us in lifetime how it potentially can work. It's a Ruach HaKodesh diary. So in the moment, I know these different wisdom teachings. Let's play. Let's see what happens. And when you could do it with other people that can hold you, Be'ezras Hashem, it seems to be, again, all of these words, especially in our dor, it seems to be helpful. Helpful. So, anything else before we? Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem is Barach. Thank you to the viewers. Thank you to the chevra that sends messages. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel good. My nefesh feels good when you send messages. Thank you. And that it's helpful speaking into the two little dots here on the phone. And Be'ezras Hashem, mamash, we should go from strength to strength. We should hold kop. We should be able to be mamash, really B'nai Avraham, caring, sharing, supporting and encouraging, and not letting any noise in. To be monomaniacally focused on the outcome, caring, sharing, supporting, encouraging, with good firm boundaries, to learn Torah, Avodah Gemilus Chasadim, B'Shleimus, Be'ezras Hashem is Baruch, L'chaim Tovim U'Shalom, Baruch Hashem.